Hey guys, welcome to a new video, and today, as you can tell by the title of the video, today is going to be a Q&A video. A couple of weeks ago, I asked you guys to ask me questions in a Q&A video, and I got a bunch of them here, so yeah, let's get to them, shall we? You guys asked a lot of really great questions, and I appreciate the feedback from them. I am going to answer them now. This first question comes from a user on YouTube that also makes trailers, by the name of Avalos 3010. He asks, how long does it take for you to make a video? It ultimately comes down to what kind of video it is, and it also depends on how I'm feeling. If it's a trailer, it could range from like 1 to 3 hours. If it's a top 10, it ranges from 1 week to a month, pretty much. But I do like making these videos. I love the product that comes out of them. And yeah, pretty much, as long as you put the effort into it, you can make a really great video. This next question comes from Blue Scout, who asks, what's your favorite matchup that you have ever made? This one is very tricky for me to answer because I like a lot of the trailers I make for the fact that, again, the content I put out is pretty decent. But if you ask me, if you put like a gun to my head, I would say Nero vs. Hellboy. I love that video. The music syncs up really well. It's just really fun, honestly. And I love the matchup too. Really hope it becomes real one of these days. This next question comes from Carnage Fights. He asks 2 questions. Who would win in a fight between Stitch and Crash? And number 2, what is your favorite and least favorite death battles? First question, I believe Stitch kinda fucking destroys Crash in general. There's a couple black hole feats in the Lilo and Stitch and all that. Leroy and Stitch also has like a black hole feat that it opens up with, and Stitch survives all that. Crash, as far as I know, only gets to like City via the Cortex ship explosion, which got like 2 megatons. Yeah, you can see why Stitch kind of fucking stops. As for question 2, my least favorite episode is Nightwing vs. Daredevil. Live action does not work for Death Battle. I think it was really lackluster. They didn't really do any cool stuff with it. There's a lot of potential with both animation and the way the characters interact with one another, and they didn't nail it with live action. Personally, in my opinion, I think 3D would have worked better for this fight, but I don't know, that's just me. And my new favorite episode up to this point is Obi-Wan vs. Cock and Ball Torture. Oh, I'm sorry, shit, that's a typo. I meant Obi-Wan vs. Kakashi. This episode is amazing. The animation was good, the banter was amazing, the score was awesome, like all of it was perfect, and I just love it. I always go back and watch this episode like every day because of how great it is. Yes, Kakashi dies, which is big sad, but Obi-Wan wins, which is big Chad energy. This next 2 questions come from Dana Household. Here are my questions. Do you watch Death Race? Do you like any other Death Battle trailer makers? And when will you do more transition videos? I kinda watch Death Race. I mostly skip over the analysis part and just go straight to the video, I guess. It's okay, honestly. It's not perfect, but I mean, I'm not gonna say I hate it, because it actually is pretty entertaining at times. I like Wiz and Boomster being commentators to Death Race. I think that's pretty good. As for your second question, I mean, not really, but I guess the one that would actually come closest to me liking is Avalos, because his trailers are actually pretty good. They're decent, actually, I should say. They're not good and they're not bad. They're okay. And yeah, that's kind of it. As for the other question, I don't know if I'll make another one of those videos. They were fun to make, but I mean, I kind of just want to keep those as one-offs. So I don't know, maybe in the future I'll make another video like that, but most likely not. Our next question comes from Darth Tyrant, who asks, thoughts on matchups like Superior Spidey versus Batman Who Laughs, and Vlad versus His Scare. Cool matchups, but I don't really have that much of an opinion on them. I like Ben 10, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I don't really care that much about His Scare, nor do I care about Vlad. Superior Spidey versus Batman Who Laughs is pretty enjoyable, and it's the only time I'll actually say that a Batman versus Spider-Man matchup is actually interesting to me. Excluding the villain fights, of course. This next question comes from Grant Strader, who asks, out of every fan-made trailer you've made, which one do you think should be an official death battle? Probably Giorno versus Joker, or Ridley versus Vilgax. I think both of these fights are very fun and have very good animation potential. My only gripes is that Giorno vs. Joker is a pain in the ass to debate. It is probably one of the most toxic debates I've ever seen for a death battle. But Ridley vs. Vilgax is pretty clean with this debate. There's not really toxicity with it, unless you get to the hardcore Ben 10 fans that are still angry about Ben vs. Hal. But in all honesty, they are both pretty good matchups overall. Our next question comes from Jack of All Trades, who asks, how do you determine which death battle matchups you want to do trailers for? And by extension, which ones do you put before the recent polls? Also, side note, I love this poll idea and I hope you keep it up. Personally, it's mostly on personal preference for me. If I think the matchup is interesting, I'll mostly put it in the poll or I'll do the trailer for it. But I'll also do trailer for ideas that are more, I guess you could say, obscure. Well, for the most part, you can tell from my last polls that I'm trying to get more unique ideas in here that also, make sense along with it. So it's a combination of my personal preference and obscure matchup that makes sense. This next question comes from James Dillard, who asks, what is the most challenging trailer to do? I have no idea. To be honest with you, I'm just gonna spitball here and probably say Nero versus Hellboy. But yeah, I have no idea which trailer was most challenging. I think they were all equally as challenging. The thing is that it's not a challenge to make these. It's just kind of time consuming, This next question comes from James McGuire, who asks, well, what got you into the Versus community? And who is one of your favorite YouTubers? What mainly got me into the Versus community is watching another YouTuber by the name of Redrunner's videos. His top 10s he does every year are really fun, and I actually really like watching them. They're very interesting, to say the least. They have a lot of really good information in them. I wouldn't say extremely good, but it's pretty decent, honestly. It gives you a general look at the characters. And honestly, he does a really good job at them, so shout out to him. And my favorite YouTuber, without a doubt, is iDubbbz. iDubbbz is amazing. He's one of the funniest dudes I've ever watched. Not only that though, he actually makes some really good commentary videos on, I guess, social stuff, but it's just mainly him giving his topic on random stuff altogether. And he makes pretty good points in his videos, while on top of being funny. This next question comes from Luke Spotobot, who asks, why is your nickname the Granville? I know it's a Pokemon, lol. Also, could you make a tutorial on how you make your trailers? So the first question. Honestly, I got it from the fact that Granville is my favorite Pokemon. I love it it's one of my favorite Gen 2s in all honesty, and it's probably one of the most underrated Pokemon. Design-wise, it looks pretty good, and moveset-wise, it's pretty decent, honestly. I just wish it had better stats overall. Thank God for the fairy typing though. And to answer the second question, probably not, because there's really no set way I make my trailers. It's pretty simple too. You just get the overlay for the next time. You get music on Audio Network, and then you just get the footage off of YouTube. That's pretty much all I do for the most part. These next questions come from Macer, who asks, do you live on Mars? No, I live on Saturn. Do you have fun making death battle trailers? Yes, all the time. Will you ever live stream at any point by playing games or something? Probably in the future I'll live stream myself editing videos, but I don't have interest right now. You don't have to answer this, but how old are you? I am 18. I just turned 18 on the 15th. Lastly, do you like my profile picture? Perhaps. These next set of questions come from Mervin Aiden, who asks, who are your most hated characters? Steven Universe, Deku, Bakugo, and any Overwatch character that isn't Genji, Hanzo, or Doomfist. Yeah, that's pretty much it. These next questions come from Michael McDonald. God, I really should have put a limit on how many questions he could have asked me. But anyway, he asks, here are a few questions. Who would you rather see in Death Battle? Bucciarati or Polnareff? And who would be their best opponents? If anything, I would like to see Bruno in Death Battle. But unfortunately, he doesn't have a lot of good opponents. The only good one I can think of is Trafalgar Law from One Piece. But, oh god, Law looks in his direction and he just commits die. It's a bad stomp in my opinion. Though it can be interesting with their powers and how they would interact with one another though. Can you make Korra versus Storm? Probably not, because I have a different idea for Storm and Korra. For Korra, I'd probably do Korra versus Delsin Rowe from Infamous 2. And then for Storm, I'd actually pick Fujin from MK11. I think Fujin versus Storm is much more interesting because of the aftermath buffs Fujin got. And I think it'd be really interesting. Do you like Ringmaster? Absolutely not. I think he's probably one of the worst things that they've added to DBX, in my opinion. Listen, DBX was already kind of going downhill as it was, but it was still interesting with its animations. But adding Ringmastering was just like, why? He's just so insufferable to be around. And he's not really funny. He's more or less obnoxious. It's not like Wiz and Boomstick where they have the chemistry that work off each other. It's just Ringmaster by himself. And he's not really well written at all. Do you have any other death race ideas? Actually, I do have a couple death race ideas. Which, as you can see right here, these lovely thumbnails made by me. What is your most wanted death battle? I don't really have a most wanted for the most part, but I will say right now my opinions are looking at Heavy versus Zarya or Rick versus Doofenshmirtz. What is your favorite Jofo or Jobro? Favorite Jofo is definitely Dio, Jobro, probably Okuyasu. Do you think Meliodas is annoying? I have no fucking idea, honestly. I think he's fine. In fact, I kind of actually use him as an example for people shitting on Mineta from My Hero Academia. They say that he's a pervy kid, but then people are fine with Meliodas being a perv. It's kind of hypocritical, and I kind of like to point it out to people. But overall, I think Meliodas is a fine character. He's not perfect, don't get me wrong, but he's not bad either. Who is your main in Smash Ultimate? Name any character that you think has a diabetic disorder. And you have your answer. This next question comes from Pokemon trainer Oswaldo, who asks, what happened to fan-made scores? So, I ended up getting a copyright strike on one of my score videos, apparently. I guess someone reported it to YouTube for some weird reason. But I ended up fighting it, and I did get it revoked, I believe. So, that's fine. But I decided to just put all of them on unlisted because I'd rather not get another strike and lose my monetization. You know what I mean? This next question comes from Plasma Productions, who asks, favorite Power Ranger team? Either Lost Galaxy or In Space. These next set of questions come from, I can't pronounce his name, it's Russian, sorry. But anyway, he asks, how does it feel to be the most popular among the fan-made Death Battle trailer community? Feels pretty good, honestly. I put a lot of work into these trailers that a lot of people would probably just take for granted. These videos, they're easy to make, but they're very time consuming. And I do have to try and make sure that everything syncs up properly. Like, you just gotta make sure the music is synced up right with the video clips. The end card looks symmetrical. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it. But it is fun to make them. And that hard work is definitely paid off with how my videos do turn out. Which trailer do you want to remake? Honestly, I would like to either remake Grievous vs. Nefarious or Spy vs. Sombra. I think both of those trailers can definitely use an overhaul overall. And lastly, why did you give up the seasons? To be honest with you, I got rid of them for the fact that they were kind of eating up space, in my opinion. I was thinking for a minute, I'm like, wait a minute, why do I need seasons? I can just make the trailers and just put it into one giant playlist. It's just for convenience for the most part. So that way I can just go into one big playlist and then search for the video I want to look for. It's also convenient for other people too. So they can just like watch all the trailers and go, instead of just waiting 17 and then going to another one. This next comment comes from Sarah Johnson, who asks, can you make a video where you would make your own Death Battle season? Actually, I have plans of doing this video. I most likely will call it the inner workings of a Death Battle season. Basically, I'll just go over what's in a season typically, and what would my own version of the season would look like. So look forward to that. These next two questions come from the Shush, who asks, what is your opinion on Ben 10 vs. Green Lantern? Do you agree or disagree with it? I agree with the outcome of Ben 10 vs. Green Lantern. I 100% agree with Hal winning. I knew Ben was powerful, but he was nowhere near as powerful as Hal was. And I know people are gonna say, go watch Kuro's video. Kuro's video is not very good for a source of information on a matchup like this, especially when it's a DC character. DC characters are significantly lowballed in this community to like solar system. And that's just like, what? Why? DC heralds are like consistently universal. There is literally 66 universal DC feats that all the heralds scale to. How are you going to look at me in the eyes and tell me that that is more consistent than Alien X's one universal feat, by the way? Yes, the one universal feat he has, which is resetting the universe. Am I upset that Hal won? Not really, because I actually prefer Hal a lot more to Ben, in my opinion. I think Hal is way more interesting. But do I disagree with the outcome? No, I absolutely do not. It is right. Stop. Just stop trying to say Ben wins in Solo's DC, because he doesn't. Sorry I went on a bit of a tangent there, but this fight, it just mind blows me every time I hear someone say Ben should have won. Anyway, his second question was, what are your opinions on Sasuke versus Hiei? Do you agree or disagree? I agree with the outcome of that as well. I think it's much more simpler than Ben versus Hal, in my opinion. I agree that Hiei wins, but I think it's a very close fight, and you can make arguments for Sasuke. But in my opinion, I think Hiei's planet-level stuff is much more consistent than Naruto's planet-level feats. But I don't know much about both series, though, so I just know that Hiei's is much more consistent and Naruto's is kind of icky. Or not icky, it's just not very consistent when you compare it to Hiei, basically. So yeah, I'm gonna say I agree with it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Sasuke would win that in the future. Anyway, this next question comes from Trey the Goat, who asks, what got you interested in Death Battle? As a kid, I was always on the internet. I'd always like search around, see if there's anything interesting on. And I remember back in 2010, I believe, I saw a matchup that something that interested me. Basically, it was Boba Fett versus Samus. I didn't know who Samus was at the time, but I knew who Boba Fett was, and I clicked on it. And it was interesting to see what these people... It was interesting to see how Death Battle worked back then, and it was also interesting to see how they did this. It was interesting to see that they had animation, and it wasn't just like one of those essay videos where they just say the stats of the character and then they say who wins. They had animation to it, they gave reasoning for it, and it was always interesting to me. So I'm like, oh, I like this channel. It was always fun. Now that it was Screw Attack at the time, and basically they'd have also top 10s on there, and I love top 10s. They're some of my favorite videos for content creators to make. And for the most part, that's how I found Death Battle, just kind of scurrying around YouTube, looking to see what the platform had to offer at the time. And it was definitely worth checking out, because otherwise I wouldn't be here. Anyway, this video is getting pretty long, so I'm going to wrap it up here with our last question, coming from Wespian, who asks, what is your favorite thumbnail that you've ever made? And again, another very tough question, but if I had to say so, it would either be Grodd versus Mojo Jojo, Galactus versus Unicron, the Arceus versus Beerus one is pretty good, or my new Android 18 versus Cyborg one I just made. Those would probably be my favorite thumbnails I've made, just because of the effects on them. And with that, that wraps up the Q&A questions. I hope you guys enjoyed watching the video. If you actually enjoyed it, leave a like on there. That way I can know that I'm doing good. And if you have any, say, critiques for making better videos, please let me know in the comments below. If you also want to check out my artwork, there's a link in the description to my DeviantArt account. You can look at all the artwork, all the thumbnails, all the scores I make, and also just random stuff I make over time. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.
Back from the dead.